Motherhood has always been a troubling concept for me. From the outside, it looked like a vortex into which any flame of ambition or self-determination would be forever suffocated. I felt that way up to and beyond the moment I lay my son in the co-sleeper for the first time. I looked at him and wept while my mom rubbed my back. I know, she said. You love him so much, you just can't stand it. But my tears were not those of overwhelming love. They were tears of unadulterated terror, perhaps even horror at what I had just chosen to do with my life. It was a tightrope walk between awe and soul-shattering regret. I never wanted to be a mom, but I did do it on purpose. I did it in defiance of my own terror. I figured if I could face down my greatest fear and emerge maybe even better off, I could handle anything. I was playing a game of Russian roulette when I had unprotected sex that lovely winter Wednesday afternoon. If I became pregnant and managed to find joy in what lay beyond that, I won. If not, I was selling the rest of my life in exchange for a challenge. As my belly grew, when asked about my birth plan, I used to say that I felt as if I had made an appointment with the mafia to be beaten and disemboweled. Pregnancy and birth signified a loss of control and obliteration of my identity so complete that I doubted my ability to survive. I doubted my body, and I doubted my mind. Before facing down that challenge, I believed that freedom and thereby happiness was achieved by a lack of responsibility. And let me be clear, I still very much enjoy a lack of responsibility, particularly beachside. But what I didn't realize was that instead of breaking my spirit, motherhood would set me alight, grounding me in my own identity, informing my place in the world. The motherhood I feared was crippling, heavy with burden and boredom, devoid of vision and timelessness. But what I discovered, and what I saw in friends who took the same path, is that motherhood has the capacity to be a means to freedom, an urgent push to spur us on toward greater realization of ourselves, rather than a subjugation of our needs to those of our children. My Nana passed away last year, 90 years old, 4 kids, 10 grandkids, 4 great-grandkids, and 1 amazing papa on her arm for over 60 years. She traveled the world well into her 80s and told me through her devoutly Christian worldview that, above all things, I must see the Taj Mahal before I die. It's majestic, she said, a monument to love. Her funeral was full to capacity, and in her eulogy, my father, after noting her integrity, generosity, and sometimes severe discipline, concluded that above all else, she was a dancer. She could tear up a foxtrot, and did so, often. She may have been poised and orderly, the terra firma of her life taken up with mothering and then grandmothering, but she was also out for a good time. Within the mid-century structure of her life, she was free. Her legacy looms large, but for me, it's not about the number of offspring she had or the hundreds of people who found themselves inspired to show up for her funeral. It's the free-spiritedness with which she lived. She had peace and joy and abundance because she knew who she was. She never required her enthusiasm, her faith, or her marriage to take a back seat to the needs of the kids. They were fine. They were more than fine. And if something needed doing in the world, she was going to go do it, period. I learned from her and from my own mother that my son's balance and fulfillment in life hinges not on my being able to coddle him into adulthood. With a loving and reliable framework around him, it hinges on his mom and his dad continuing to be whole people, growing, failing, changing, and being available most of the time, but not all of the time. The best example I can set for him is one fueled with fire for living and loving, a life in which I can move and stretch and breathe and give so that he can learn to do the same. Motherhood, much to my surprise, turned out to be an incredible blessing. It changed the landscape of my days, for sure, but it didn't change the core trajectory of who I am. In fact, By hemming me in, it has driven me to burn brighter. Motherhood is kerosene on the fire, and my son is the best reason I ever had to live bigger, stronger, and freer. Thank you.